How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another. Let's call it the like 222nd episode of Better Off Left. Who cares? Nobody's keeping count at this point. So I think the way we're gonna do this is we're gonna start each of these with like just a made up number. So welcome to the 222nd episode of Better Off Left. If I'm not mistaken, today we are talking about. I guess we can put the smiles away because shit's about to get serious. But we're talking about all the bullshit that the Torrance Police Department has been up to over the course of I was going to say it for a year, but honestly, it's been much longer than that. This is just where we're choosing to start today. But we're talking about federal lawsuits. We're talking about swastikas. We're talking about anti-Black messages being exchanged within departments. We're talking, it's sick, yo. It's sick, and the fact is, of the 15 plus officers that are implicated in all of this, it sounds like 2 of them have been removed from the department permanently, right? So that's the type of ratio we're talking about in terms of discipline here. But all right, so in January of 2020. A young man, I won't use his name, but a young man was arrested by 2 officers of Torrance PD. And once he was released released from their custody, however that came to be, he came back to his vehicle, or he regained possession of his vehicle, and there was a swastika painted on, spray painted on the back of his, I want to say passenger seat. And he obviously has questions about this. It turns out that he actually has, as he puts it, Jewish heritage or Jewish ancestry, right? And so he's obviously pretty concerned about this. He, I want to say, within 48 hours, files a complaint to the department, and eventually, I want to say, towards the end of 2020, towards the very end of 2020, there's actually the beginnings of an investigation. Although he is not notified that any investigation is taking place or is in the works until until 2021, right? Like late into 2021. So you got to think, right? So you're arrested, you get out. The officers that were at for a period of time with your vehicle have presumably put a swastika on your vehicle. You inform the department about this. And then there's just radio silence, right? At least as it regards to, the investigation. And then over the course of this investigation, digging into whether or not these 2 officers had actually done this, and it would appear that they had, because one of the 2 had already turned on the other and said, well, he did it, right? And once you start seeing that type of stuff, then typically, it's pretty obvious where it's going. But over the course of the investigation, whether or not these 2 officers had done what they are accused of doing, it has been discovered through going through their messages that they had contact, or that they were exchanging racist and homophobic and anti-Black messages with other officers within Torrance PD, and I think one other outside of it, maybe with Redondo Beach PD, if I'm not mistaken. And this is where I just want to take a step back and try to remind, and Luisa, if you want to jump in here after this, please do so. But this is where I just want to take a step back and remind people that when you hear stories like this, your concern should not be that there are people that hold these racist or anti-Black or anti-Semitic beliefs, right? Although that's obviously concerning to some extent, that should not be the primary concern. The primary concern should be that the people that hold them in instances like this have the actual power to impose those beliefs on your body, right? On your life, right? And so this isn't some matter of, we just need to get the right cops in. We just need to get rid of the bad apples. We just need to have racial sensitivity courses within the police departments. Because it's not about their individually held beliefs. There's plenty of people in there's probably your teachers, your nurses, your doctors. I mean, Black people know this, right? There's people who you have to trust to some extent with important things in your life that hold these beliefs. And this is just a reality we live with. The problem is when you're dealing with things like police departments, when you're dealing with the institution of policing in general, these people have the unquestionable authority to impose those beliefs on you. When they pull you over, when they put a gun in your face, when they kneel on your neck, when they kill you, there's no review of what they were thinking in that moment that's going to rectify that after the fact, right? There's no retroactively coming back and saying, "Oh, we found out he was racist." Well, that's awesome. It doesn't matter, right? Like the
Yeah.
authority was always there, and it will continue to be vested in these people moving forward. But I'll leave it there for right now. Luis, do you have anything to add in on this before I
Yeah,
keep
I
ranting?
yeah, I just want to add on that we're going to see later that this isn't sort of an anomaly for Torrance PD. This isn't something that is shocking when you look at their history. That they have a very particular racist history amongst their police department of using slurs or using code words to kind of notify each other of when they're dealing with someone who's black, someone who is Latino, or whatever have you. Um, yeah, this department does have a very, very racist history. So I think that it being so public now is probably due to the very like outward nature and that it was probably displayed this time around. Like a literal fucking swastika was graffitied on somebody's vehicle. Like that's super super hard to hide. And yeah, that's why we're talking about this now, and that's why we're eventually going to rally against this police department.
And just to further make the point here, right? Like the message is like, and again, this is me trying to communicate to whoever is watching this that the point here is again not that these people have these internally held beliefs, but that they have the power to enforce them and impose them on your livelihood. These people weren't these officers weren't just exchanging messages like, "Hey, we hate black people," or "Hey, we don't like Jewish people," or something like that, right? Um, there's specific reports about what's in some of these messages, and it's things like, "Hey, this is where there are currently black people in this area of Torrance in case y'all want to go cause some havoc, right? Go harass some people, right?" I think the term they were using was NIT, which is of course N-word in Torrance, right? And this is like means of communication. This is like systematic. This is like systematic approaches to harassing people, right?
Yep.
And it's documented that some of the officers implicated in exchanging those messages have records of using severe to lethal force on Latinx men and black men, right? This isn't hypothetical like, oh, they're racist. They could have potentially done something. These people have done things, right? And because of the way the system is set up, there's no way to know when a cop, beat some black dude bloody, whether he does that because, quote unquote, he felt the need to, or because he just doesn't like black people. This is where the internal stuff, once you try to start reading people's hearts and emotions and stuff, things just get really cloudy. And then that's when the legal system can just say, well, let's just toss this, right? But when you just get to the material realities, right? How much power do these people have over you? This isn't, these aren't like abstract feelings. This is stuff that actually affects people. But yeah.
Okay, yeah. When Torrance police officers saw black people in their city in the 1990s, so I bring this up just to kind of really emphasize that this isn't a new occurrence in Torrance PD at all. Since the 1990s, they've been using their racist acronyms of NIT, NITAD, uses racial slurs to note that, yeah, when a black person is either in Torrance or in Torrance after dark, that's the second acronym, which is very, very frightening that they would even have an acronym to resemble that. Um, but yeah, I think it's just important to note that not only this department, but many, many departments have this history, and it's literally in the nature of police departments in general to have this sort of attitude towards people of color, towards low income people. Yeah, so we're having a rally in front of Torrance City Hall in Torrance, California. If you want to join in solidarity, it's going to be this Sunday, January 30th at 3 p.m. Bring signs, bring masks. I know that we're going to have water, we're going to have snacks there as well. And yeah, we have specific demands as well. We want to demand essentially that the officers involved in these text messages be fired. Um, I believe there's also an oversight committee that will be established in the future. Uh, we need more detail on that, right? Because um, accountability and oversight within Torrance departments is very within police departments is very unheard of, right? To say the least. So we need to know exactly how this committee is going to look like, and I think that we need the people of Torrance to be in there, not any sort of, I don't know, like police involvement and all. Um, because
And then
that
beyond that,
yeah
right, the right people in Torrance, right? I feel like we can
yeah
be confident to say that because I mean, let's face it, there's a considerable amount of very reactionary and white supremacist folks in that space. So the right folks to actually oversee this and make the right calls. Yeah.
yeah, I agree 100%. Um, yeah, were there any sort of other demands that I'm missing here?
Yeah, I mean, the general situation here is that every cop that is listed as being involved in the exchange of those messages, um, I believe it starts from, at least from what they've been logging, it starts from the January 2020 till the present, although it might have gone beyond that as well. All of those officers need to be fired immediately.
Yep.
And counterpoint to that might be that there is some procedural stuff that needs to take place. There is some further analysis that needs to take place. But to me, what that relays to every other officer in that department and any other police department within the South Bay is that the morality of those actions are debatable, right? They're up for discussion. And the fact is, if you are entrusted, first of all, I mean, I have thoughts about who should be entrusted with, if anybody should be entrusted with, with the weaponry that officers are entrusted with to walk the streets. But that's a whole nother discussion. But if these people are going to be entrusted with all of this power and all this social cachet, then there needs to be a zero tolerance policy. Like they can't be any lingering around of, we'll put them on administrative leave, which might be paid leave, and just, let the heat die down. And then whoever maybe said like some of the least spicy stuff in the messages, we'll bring them back. Maybe the real like ringleaders, they have to go. No. If anybody even tolerated this for a second, right, they need to go. That's really all there is to it. And anybody who is concerned about actual safety in their communities, specifically as regards to Torrance, I don't see how you see it this any other way, right? Unless, of course, you're a white supremacist and that's what you want.
Yeah.
But I'll the benefit of the doubt and say that's not the case. So that's first and foremost there. And then second is what you mentioned, of course, which is we need to be monitoring the development of whatever this board is supposed to be and how it's developing, who's being involved in it, who is stewarding, the direction of it. This is all things that we need to be monitoring, and then to transition straight back into the conversation about the rally. Anybody who is considering attending or kind of teetering on it because maybe you're on about like the rah stuff and like the signs and the yelling and whatever. What we're also looking to do here at the rally is not just to do all of those things, which are perfectly fine, but then also we want to have conversations with folks in the community, right, that are actually concerned about this stuff. Because if we as an organization can have discussions with folks in organizations, namely our South Bay Community Care and Torrance for Justice as well, if we can continue to have conversations with folks in the community about these concerns and seeing what folks actually want to do in response, that builds out that infrastructure for us to actually start approaching, local government and making these demands and watching these things more closely and trying to have a hand in where these things are directed, right?
Yeah.
Because without that, of course, then we're just kind of screaming in the wind and it goes nowhere. So I want to really emphasize to folks that what on the base level, what the goal is here is to communicate the issues, discuss the issues with the folks in the community, make sure everybody's on the same page about the stakes of what's actually being implied or implicated in all of this, right? It's about the control of your community, you know what I mean? And who's in control of your community, what decisions are being made, and who is being put, who has been giving all the trust and all the power to oversee everything, right? And if we're starting to find out quickly and rapidly that a lot of these people are, are bad faith actors or racist actors, right? Or or white supremacist agents, right?
Mm-hmm.
These people cannot be in these spaces. There's no justification for it. And so as long as we want to spend that time on the date of the rally. We want to spend that time having discussions with folks in the community about how we can start righting this situation. You know what I mean? And I'll leave it there.
Yeah, and just to kind of speak to your earlier point as well, is that um, when you leave these people in these positions of power with the certain very horrible ideologies that they hold, it bears horrible, horrible consequences for your communities, especially your communities that consist of black and brown folks. And to kind of just support this, um, even about 4 years back in 2018, um, a young black man, let me see, Christopher DeAndre Mitchell was actually shot and killed on December 9th, 2018. Um, Officers were responding to a call of a supposedly stolen vehicle, and according to his mother and I believe the footage, Christopher was completely cooperative, completely polite in her words to these officers, and they murdered him essentially. So it's not simply, oh, like people's feelings are hurt because people are saying mean things or whatever. No, there's white supremacist, racist people in this police department that their disgusting ideology is leading to disgusting actions that they commit to. They're committing crimes against black and brown people, and that is at the heart of this rally. Uh, um, to call for the immediate strip of power from these people, the immediate strip of power.
And Luis, I just want to add this one last thing because you saying that reminded me of like actually one of the biggest parts of the story, and I don't know how I forgot to bring it up, but there's been a sum total of about 110 cases that have been like retroactively thrown out due to the discovery that so many of these officers have held these beliefs, right? Because obviously, once this occurs, you have to start looking back at all these cases and saying, why exactly are these why exactly are these people being criminalized? Why exactly are these people being pulled over? What are the intentions of these officers, right? And this is the thing, right? This is the problem with reform as it's presented in like mainstream politics to us, regular citizens or whatever.
Yeah.
Is the idea is that, okay, cool, let's keep experimenting with cops. Something goes wrong, let's pull those bad apples, quote unquote, bad apples out, and then we'll keep trucking along and keep making adjustments. Here's the problem with that, right? Those 110 cases that had to have been thrown out, those people's lives were altered, right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's not something, even if all of these officers are fired today, right? Those people had to deal with legal fees. They had to deal with the trauma of being wrapped up in, the quote unquote justice system out here, right? There's all of these different things. And if we're talking about making people whole again, right? If we want to turn this back to demands, if we're talking about making people whole again, it can't just be that, okay, we made a mistake, wipe our hands clean, fire these guys, and then we keep going with our regular old carcerality. It's like, whoa, right? Like, no, we can't just keep, you know what I mean? Like, all of these people were wrapped up. And we're just talking about like, 15 plus cops. We're not even talking about an entire department. Imagine the damage, right? Like, maybe this is getting a little too galaxy brain, but it's not really. But just, okay, expand what we're talking about. 110 cases thrown out due to 15 plus, let's call it white supremacist officers, right? Expand that to the U.S., police system. How many cases are we talking about? How many people, how many bodies, how many people are we talking about? How many lives are we talking about that have been affected by this nonsense? And for the solution to just be reform, right? Let's just try to patch some holes and keep it trucking. It's like, how many people are we leaving behind? You know what I mean? And again, just speaking to stakes, these are the type of conversations that we need to be having at the rally, that we're going to continue to have with those that choose to engage with the rally and choose to engage with Torrance for Justice and choose to engage with South Bay Community Care, any other organization that's concerned with, the ravages of capitalism and carcerality, right?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up essentially the fallacy of police reform and how like some may think that okay, yeah, you just fire these officers and yeah, we can move on, and racism is fixed suddenly in Torrance and in Torrance PD. Um, but no, that's not the case at all. Ultimately, at the root of our demands, it's a much more long term endeavor. But at the root of our demands is police abolition. And I think that's also important to emphasize that we're not just trying to like our gripes with police departments aren't going to end with just uh, um, these dudes being fired, but that's going to be like a good or actually like the bare minimum first start that Torrance Police Department needs to do.
I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to having genuine conversation and meeting people at the rally and starting to devise some of the solutions that the state is just never going to supply for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beyond cop reform, right? The types of community led projects that can only start with us, and it can't start with the local politicians that we elect, or it can't start with oversight boards, or even with or it can't start with the police themselves, right? And so, yeah, man, I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm really excited for this rally. I'm really excited to have, get in community with folks and have conversations.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. And yeah, join us in solidarity at this Sunday's rally, January the 30th, at 3 p.m. In front of Torrance City Hall, where yeah, we will rally against this police department. So hope to see you there. Bye.